The popular reality program 90 Day Fiancé star Jasmine Pineda has recently made headlines for allegedly deciding to divorce Gino Palazzolo and cutting her hair off, which is considered as a sign of a new chapter in her life. According to a close source, the reason for Jasmine's choice is Gino's addiction to pornography. As said by Jasmine, Gino doesn't have the strength or confidence to keep a woman by his side with love and respect for the rest of his life. I'm tired. I don't want this life anymore. Fans were devastated at the split, but Jasmine surprised them with something else. She disclosed that she and a man named Matt are now beginning a new life together. According to Jasmine herself, "This is why I chose Matt. He understands me, respects me, and gives me the love I've always been looking for." Some followers are disappointed at Gino's actions, while others think Jasmine made a brave choice. But now, this once-discussed pair is on two distinct paths. One is looking for love again, while the other might have to confront his faults. The skyline was painted gold by the rising sun above Panama City. But to Jasmine Pineda, everything appeared gray. She had a pair of scissors in her shaking hands as she stood at the window of her apartment. As she chopped off each strand, her long, dark hair, which had previously been her pride and identity, gently dropped to the ground. Each snippet was a farewell. Goodbye to Gino. Farewell to the suffering. Goodbye to the illusion of a love that never actually saw her. Jasmine was known across the world as a fiery, theatrical, and passionate lady who loved with all of her heart. However, the silent loneliness she carried was not always captured by the cameras. There was a woman on 90 Day Fiancé who begged to be understood behind all of her arguments, tears, and smiles. She had once been promised the world by Gino Palazzolo. He claimed that she was everything to him and his queen. But Jasmine had discovered that love is more than just words. She had discovered web pages, videos, and messages. The secret, the obsession, and the isolation it caused were what broke her, not the material per se. She confronted him one evening. "Gino, why?" With tears sparkling in her eyes, she whispered. He looked down in embarrassment. "I'm not sure, Jasmine. I simply have no control over it. It doesn't imply that I don't cherish you." For Jasmine, however, love was about respect, not justifications. She turned her back on him after coming to the realization that love alone cannot always save someone who is unwilling to save himself. Weeks passed. The world outside kept going. But within her apartment, Jasmine rebuilt herself piece by piece. She began journaling at night, running in the mornings, and talking to herself with the same compassion she used to show to others. She felt raw and liberated because of the way her short hair framed her face. She was no longer the Jasmine Gino had defined, but the Jasmine who was capable of defining herself. Then she met him, Matt, one evening at a small rural women's wellness retreat. He wasn't flamboyant or well-known. He was gentle, a quiet person who paid more attention than he said. When Jasmine related her experience with him, he didn't try to fix her. "Jasmine, you've been through fire," he replied simply. "However, notice how radiant you still are." She was broken by that one sentence. She sobbed because she was relieved that someone had finally seen her, not because she was unhappy. Their relationship deepened over time. Frequently, Matt would surprise her with handwritten letters, which served as small reminders that she was worthy of tranquility. Matt reached for her hand one night as they were sitting under the stars. "You don't need to jump right in," he added quietly. "I want everyone to know that I'm here, not just the lovely parts of you." Jasmine didn't feel like she was performing for the first time in years. She laid her head on his shoulder and laughed unrestrained. She grinned as her freshly chopped hair touched the moonlight. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Gino sat in his Michigan apartment, surrounded by stillness. As he looked through old pictures of Jasmine, he recognized what he had lost: her grin, her fire, her boundless enthusiasm. His heart ached with regret. He realized for the first time that addiction and insecurity cannot coexist with love. He made several attempts to contact Jasmine, leaving messages here and calls there, but she never responded. It was done for healing, not retaliation. Although she had forgiven him in her heart, reconciliation is not usually the result of forgiveness. At times, it entails releasing both souls. Months later, Jasmine attended at a charity event in Miami, her makeover dazzling everyone. Her gorgeous face was framed by her short blonde hair, giving her a serene appearance. Reporters mobbed her, asking about Gino, about her new connection. With a simple smile, Jasmine said, "There are chapters in life. Some heal you, while others break you. However, you have to have the courage to flip the page." Jasmine felt the burden of her past lessen that evening as she and Matt strolled down a peaceful street hand in hand. The girl who screamed out for love had transformed into a woman who made the internal choice to love. "Thank you for the lessons, Gino," she said in a whisper as she gazed up at the stars. "And thank you for being my new beginning," she said, turning to face Matt. Her eyes were like little sparks of optimism reflecting the city lights. The world had seen her collapse, but now it would see her rise. Not as the flamboyant reality TV Jasmine, but as a woman reborn as Jasmine Pineda. And someplace deep down, she knew. Cutting her hair wasn't the end of her journey. It marked the beginning of her independence. But, with a gentle smile and her typical fiery enthusiasm, Jasmine's face glowed on the phone screen that morning. "I really do miss you, baby. Why do you appear so solemn? Again, are you keeping something from me?" Although she spoke in a light-hearted manner, distrust was always present behind her charming gaze. Gino gave a clumsy laugh. "No, honey, no. I'm simply worn out. Work has been crazy, you know." Jasmine's eyes narrowed. "Well, Gino is concealing something when he claims to be weary." In an attempt to divert her attention from his own nervousness, he immediately shifted the subject by inquiring about her sister, her new exercise regimen, her dog. But he knew in his heart that she was correct. He had something to conceal, something that could crush her heart, or destroy their love forever. Mike, Gino's friend, who had been assisting him with some paperwork, stopped over later that day. "You haven't told her yet, dude?" Mike inquired, glancing at the envelope Gino was holding. Gino gave a head shake. "I am unable to. If Jasmine finds out, she will go crazy." Mike let out a sigh. "Dude, secrets cannot be the foundation of a marriage. You must be honest with her about that money." The money, that was all. Gino had sent his ex-girlfriend $8,000 in secret months prior. At least he assured himself that it wasn't romantic. She had once assisted him when he was unemployed years ago, and his ex had been having financial difficulties. He felt accountable and guilty. He therefore sent her the money when she asked for assistance, keeping Jasmine in the dark. But then, the receipts arrived in the mail. Jasmine was now preparing to go permanently to the United States. She would know everything once she viewed the bank statements. Gino saw an old video of Jasmine laughing uncontrollably in a Panamanian restaurant that night when her hair was blowing in the tropical breeze while he was browsing through his phone. Remembering how alive she made him feel, he grinned. She loved him with all of her heart, despite her erratic, emotional, and occasionally explosive behavior. She deserved honesty, he said to himself. Nevertheless, he paused. Because being honest could potentially totally erode her trust. Jasmine finally made it to Michigan a week later. She jumped into Gino's arms at the airport, tears flowing down her cheeks. "It's unbelievable that I'm actually here." Over the next 3 days, they cooked together, decorated the apartment, and organized her belongings. It was flawless, or at least it appeared flawless. However, Gino was losing his nerves. Every time Jasmine touched his phone or talked money, his chest clenched. The night that everything changed then arrived. Jasmine discovered an envelope partially concealed beneath a stack of papers when she was tidying up the kitchen. "What's this?" She opened it before Gino could stop her and inquired. Her gaze swept over the page. "Who is the recipient of this wire transfer of $8,000? Gino stopped, his hand shook. "Jazz, allow me to explain." She slammed the paper on the counter. "Gino, explain what? While I'm here in Panama struggling to make ends meet, you send thousands of dollars to your ex?" Her eyes welled with tears. "Do you consider me to be a joke? You send me things and claim to love me, but you're secretly supporting another woman?" She resisted Gino's attempt to take her hand. It was far from romantic. I felt awful for her since she needed help. "Wrong," she yelled. "For her, you felt awful, but not for me." Jasmine stormed into the bedroom, shoving her clothes into a suitcase. "Gino, you told me lies. Even though you always claimed to be honest, this is betrayal." With tears streaming down his cheeks, Gino sat on the side of the bed. "Please don't go, Jasmine. It meant nothing, I promise you. I was attempting to do something constructive." Her voice wavered as she turned to face him. "You believe that good intentions can mend damaged trust?" Silence permeated the room. Gino didn't have an answer. Jasmine buried her face in her hands and finally sat down. "What hurts the most, do you know? For you, I left everything. You still don't trust me enough to be honest with me about my family, career, and house." Hours went by. They sat silently together. When Gino did speak, it was hardly more than a whisper. "I kept it from you because I was afraid. I'm afraid you'd believe I still had feelings for her. But I don't. I just care about you. Jasmine, you are loved. I simply made an error." Jasmine met his gaze for the first time that evening. There was anguish, but also love, deep, irrefutable love. "Gino, you ought to have told me. Everything is destroyed by secrets. But I can see you're sorry." This time she didn't yank away, as Gino grabbed for her hand. They sat silently on the porch outdoors the following morning, holding coffee mugs. The wound was still there, but the tension had eased. Gino said, "I don't want to lose you." Jasmine gave him a look. "Then don't give me reasons to doubt you again." He gave a nod. "No more secrets." She gave a small smile. "All right, because I'll find it if there is. I will, you know." It was a start, though, and they both laughed, a brittle, apprehensive laugh. But Jasmine's apartment's little balcony was scorched by the warm Panamanian sun. A bead of perspiration formed on Gino's bald head as he sat clumsily on a plastic chair. As Jasmine flipped through her phone, her long manicured nails tapping eagerly across the screen, he hurriedly adjusted his trademark blue cap. At last, she whispered, "Gino," in a sharp yet gentle enough voice to make him wince. "You said you'd help me with the rent this month. The landlord is already texting me." Gino rubbed his temples and moaned. Even though he had only been in Panama for a little more than 2 weeks, their tension was already increasing. It was different from their first meeting, when everything seemed exciting and magical. Now, money was a topic in every discussion. "Jasmine," he uttered softly and deliberately, "I don't mean to be unhelpful, but it seems like you've been talking to me about bills, rent, and—" Her phone smashed into the table. "Oh, so now I'm a gold digger, right? That's your opinion." "I didn't say that," he said hastily, but his tone reflected the frustration inside him. Jasmine stood up, pacing across the balcony. She waved her arms wildly, her hair catching the sunlight. "You Americans, you always think Latin women just want your money. Are you aware of how offensive that is?" Gino's expression softened. She turned away when he extended his hand. He whispered, "Jasmine, I love you. I really do. However, there are moments when I feel like you view me as a walking cash register, like I'm merely here to pay for things, not to develop something meaningful together." She was struck hard by that sentence. With her back to him, she froze, gazing out at the busy streets below. Neither said anything for a while. The quiet was broken by the distant honking of automobiles and the chit-chat of street sellers. Jasmine turned at last, her eyes streaming with tears. "Do you really think that's who I am?" With a quivering voice, she inquired. Gino paused. "I don't want to think that, but I'm at a loss for what to think these days." She sat down again, this time calmer. "Gino, you are aware of my predicament. I was fired from my teaching position. My children require assistance. Sometimes I have to ask for your assistance in order to survive. However, don't mistake that for greed. Feeling bad, he nodded. I understand. It's just, back home, I've been dipping into my funds a much. I donate money, I pay for trips, I buy gifts. I adore you, which is why I do it. However, it seems as though love no longer matters when you become angry with me for saying no once. Jasmine inhaled deeply. Gino, do you understand how I feel? To think that you value my affection in monetary terms? I feel rejected and unworthy when you tell me you can't assist. It's the sense that I'm not a priority, not the money. That caused Gino to hesitate. He had never considered it in that manner. For him, money was practical something to manage carefully. It was connected to emotion, safety, and trust for her. They took a stroll in Casco Viejo, Panama City's historic district, later that day. As street musicians played guitars and laughter reverberated from neighboring cafes, the sky was decorated with a beautiful sunset. They halted at the seaside, where the ocean breeze cooled their heated hearts. Do you recall our initial visit here? Jasmine asked with a little smile. You couldn't stop staring at me after you bought me that mango ice cream. Gino laughed. Yes, since I had never encountered someone like you before. You still haven't, she joked, her smile finally breaking through the tension, the passion, the fire, the vulnerability. He truly looked at her. This was the lady he'd fallen in love with, not the one who fought with him over money. He said, I don't want us to lose what we have, but we have to find balance. I can't continue to feel like your ATM. She answered, and I can't keep feeling like I have to beg you to show love. Observing the waves crashing against the cliffs, they both stood silently. At last, Jasmine remarked, perhaps we should both learn each other's love language. Mine is security, yours is deeds of service. Perhaps we can still work things out if we can compromise. Gino smiled. That would be nice. Just count the memories instead of the money. She laughed through her tears. As long as you still buy me mango ice cream sometimes. He smiled. Agree. Back at the flat that evening, Jasmine put on some calming music and lighted a candle. Gino sat next to her and held her hand. They didn't quarrel for the first time in weeks. They just chatted about dreams, worries, and what they really wanted from life together. Jasmine stated that her insecurities originated from growing up poor, always wondering about stability. After a past relationship where money destroyed everything, Gino talked candidly about his fear of being taken advantage of. And somehow, between the confessions and the flickering candlelight, they understood one other more than ever. Jasmine laid her head on Gino's shoulder as the night grew darker. You're more than just a walking cash machine, she whispered. My walking heart is you. Gino chuckled softly. That may have been the most endearing and peculiar thing someone has ever said to me. She wiped away her tears and giggled. All right, then it's perfect. There was stillness for once, as the city buzzed sweetly outside. Love was about showing up, listening and forgiving, not about who contributed more or who paid the bills. And when the candle went out, Gino remembered something he had nearly forgotten. True love is priceless. But the balcony where Jasmine stood, looking out over the glittering skyline, was surrounded by the warm, humid air of Panama City. From the streets below, the sound of distant music rose, turmoil, laughing, and life all blended into a single, restless heartbeat. Jasmine Pineda, however, was not listening. Gino Palazzolo, the man who had broken and repaired her heart more times than she could remember, was all she could think about. Gino was sitting on the couch in the apartment, looking at his phone and browsing through pictures of the two of them from their happy times together. She wore the red outfit on the day they visited the canal. The night following their most heated argument, she surprised him with dinner and candles. He sighed after grinning. Jasmine exuded emotion in every way, ferocious, erratic, yet genuine. She had told him she could never hate him after everything they had said and done, all the arguments, tears, and miscommunications. They had met earlier that day in the little cafe by Avenida Balboa, where they had gone on their first date. At first, the air seemed heavy with anxiety. Unsure if Jasmine would even show up, Gino arrived early, tapping his foot and adjusting his hat uncomfortably. She did, however, with her eyes unreadable, her hair wrapped up, and a white blouse on. "Hello, Gino," she murmured. "Hi, Jasmine." Neither said anything for a while. The silence between them was broken by the clatter of dishes and the conversation of other couples. Finally, Jasmine took a deep breath. "You know, I promised myself I wouldn't cry today." Despite her best efforts, her voice broke. "However, you always manage to overwhelm me with emotion." Gino gazed down at his coffee, stirring it idly. "Jasmine, I never intended to cause you any harm. You know that." She smiled a little, dejectedly. "I understand. Gino, you're not a bad guy." She hesitated and said, "You're just complicated." "I am too." Then he raised his head and met her gaze. "Both of us have made mistakes," he added quietly. "But Jasmine, I still adore you. I never stopped." Jasmine blinked quickly and averted her gaze. She muttered, "Love isn't always enough. It's like a fire sometimes. Beautiful, but if we're not careful, it burns everything." The jealousy, the yelling, and the tears from their arguments flashed back between them. In addition, she would sneak up behind him and kiss the back of his neck while he was cooking, and they would laugh and have funny moments. The silence was then broken once more by Jasmine's voice. "Gino, you know what's funny?" With a little smile tugging at her lips, she said, "After all of this, I can't hate you. I tried, believe me. This man drives me insane," I informed my family and friends. "However, I simply cannot detest you when I see you or think about you." Gino's gaze grew softer. "Why not?" Her tone softened as she said, "Because you've been the one person who saw me when I was at my worst and didn't run away. Even though you shouldn't have, you stayed. You've shown me more forgiveness than I merited. You gave me the impression that perhaps perfection isn't the goal of love. Perhaps it's just a matter of showing up." Her eyes filled with tears. "And for that, even if we aren't together, I will always love you." Hours later, Jasmine sat alone on her balcony, thinking about what she had spoken. She had no regrets. It felt liberating to know the truth. Loving Gino had been messy, unpleasant, sometimes even humiliating, but it had also been real. Gino had left her a message when her phone chimed. "Gino, tomorrow I'm taking a plane back to Michigan. However, I will always remember today. I appreciate that you tried to forgive me." Before submitting, she typed, hesitated, and then deleted her words twice. Jasmine. "Gino, you don't have to be flawless. Simply be yourself. That is the man I fell in love with." After a few seconds, the typing bubble showed up. "Gino, Jasmine, you will always hold a special place in my heart. It will be as the lady who transformed me, even if it isn't as my wife." She gave a sorrowful smile. "You changed?" She muttered to the night air. "You changed me too." Jasmine got up early the following morning. The room was bathed in a gentle gold as the sunlight filtered through the drapes. She gazed from the window as the city came to life, with sellers shouting, buses screaming, and kids laughing. She was progressing along with life. However, she couldn't help but think about Gino, who was most likely at the airport right now, twitching his hat, holding onto his boarding pass, and scanning the area anxiously as usual. She pictured him looking out the window of the airplane as the clouds rolled over Panama. And perhaps, just possibly, he was also considering her. Jasmine and her friend Carla were sitting at a cafe a few weeks later. Carla smiled teasingly and asked, "Are you finally over Gino?" Jasmine chuckled quietly. "Above him? It is unlikely that I ever will be. However, I don't mind that." Carla's head cocked. "Do you still love him?" Jasmine took a contemplative sip of her coffee. "In one way or another, I will always love him. However, love does not imply that we are destined to be together." Carla grinned. "You have a poetic voice." Jasmine smiled back and shrugged. "Perhaps I'm just a woman who's at last content." She turned to face the street, where a couple was smiling and walking hand in hand. She had a silent acceptance rather than jealousy. Gino had not been the entirety of her life, but rather a chapter. Back at home that evening, Jasmine opened a little drawer that contained recollections of Gino's first trip to Panama, including old pictures, letters, and a stub from a plane ticket. She tenderly stroked it with her fingertips before whispering, grinning bittersweetly, "Gino, I will always love you, not in this life or any other." And as she pulled the drawer shut, she sensed a change, not a conclusion, but a gentle, contented release. Some relationships aren't designed to endure a lifetime. However, they leave you in a better state than when they arrived. Jasmine was aware that Gino had done just that. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amelia, and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.